First thing you do, you take a drink, and after they've had their first one, they start to get warm. Now, they wipe their face off, and when they put their handkerchiefs back, it's never in the same position, you see. Now, the next, after a couple of more drinks, they begin to itch.
In October 2024, something appeared on Tubi that made 2 million people stop scrolling. It was a television special, unseen for over 4 decades, that had been deliberately shelved by the network. Not because it failed to entertain, but because it was deemed too emotional to broadcast. This wasn't comedy. This was a confessional. Red Skelton, the world's most beloved clown, turned his final performance into a therapist's couch, speaking directly to the camera about family tragedies, career lies, and personal failures. Viewers said it felt like reading someone's private diary. What did this legend finally admit on camera that was considered too raw, too dark for television? The hidden footage revealed the desperate, shocking secrets behind the painted smile, and why the man who dedicated his life to laughter was actually running from a lifetime of profound heartbreak. The vicious cycle of poverty and the stolen start. The struggle that defined Red Skelton's life began the moment he was born. He arrived in a cramped shack in Vincennes, Indiana, just 2 months after his father, a circus clown named Joe Skelton, had died of heart failure at the age of 37. His mother was left to raise 4 boys with nothing but grit. Red quickly learned to use humor as a shield, not to impress, but to survive the constant, crippling weight of being the poorest kid in school. By the time he was just 10 years old, he had run away with a medicine show, hustling fake cure-alls for $10 a week, sleeping in barns, and sending every coin back home. But that hunger, that need to survive, forced him into a shocking act of deception that he would only admit to on his deathbed. In that final, unedited special, Skelton confessed that when he was 16 and desperate for a break, he had joined the Hagenbeck-Wallace Circus, the same circus his late father had walked. It was there, through tears and a slight nervous laugh, that he admitted he had stolen scripts, physical gags, and clown blueprints from other performers. He memorized them line by line, saying, "If I hadn't pinched those scripts, I'd still be selling soap on the streets." That desperate crime was his true gateway to fame, but what happened next would shock everyone, because that single act of theft would be dwarfed by a profound personal risk: the teen bride and the ghostwriter genius. That risky ambition soon led him to a relationship that cemented his career but stained his life. In the ruins of a failed vaudeville act, he met Edna Stillwell, an usher at a theater who possessed a mind for business and a pen for sharp comedy. They married in 1934. He was 21. But Edna was an uncredited genius. She became his manager, his demanding writing partner, and his emotional compass, creating his massive breakout character in the sketch Guzzler's Gin. By 1937, they were grossing $2,000 a week, an unheard-of sum during the Depression. But the more Red rose, the more their bond, founded when Edna was very young, cracked under the pressure. The success was theirs, but the heartbreak was also theirs alone. Their volatile relationship eventually ended, but not before Red acquired another, far more dangerous addiction: the $50,000 gambling secret. By the early 1940s, Red Skelton was reaching 20 million listeners a week on his NBC radio show. He had built an empire of innocence, a type of humor America desperately needed. Yet, behind the scenes, a dark secret was consuming him: an uncontrollable gambling addiction. His fame and wealth were skyrocketing, but his private life was a constant risk. This came to a head in a devastating night in Las Vegas. He sat down at the table and, in one single sitting, lost $50,000. All the money he had with him. Friends tried to help, but Red sat there hollow-eyed, with absolutely no jokes left. He kept chasing the same thrill he got from laughter, seeking risk, luck, and timing. His fame was a roaring fire, but his bank account was a warning to every comedian that applause cannot pay the bills if you don't know when to walk away. But nothing would compare to the private tragedy that struck just a few years later: the unspoken grief and the stolen childhood. While filming the MGM hit Bathing Beauty in 1944, Skelton received news that changed the color of his soul forever. His infant son, Richard, had been diagnosed with leukemia. On camera, he was the same rubber-faced Red, the clown everyone adored. Off camera, crew members recalled finding him weeping in dark corners, completely alone. He told the studio nothing, pushing through the filming until the grief finally consumed him when Richard passed away in 1958 at just 9 years old. Red later said that the wound from that loss never, ever healed. His work immediately turned more reflective, and the experience gave birth to his most beloved character, Freddie the Freeloader, a homeless man with warmth and a heart. A character who proved a hobo with good timing could win over a nation. That unspeakable grief was the engine for his greatest creative work. But he could not outrun the inevitable scandal that was about to erupt. The scandal, the divorce, and the desperate stunt. The public image of Red Skelton as a wholesome family man was brutally shattered in 1957. His wife and former manager, Edna, confessed to an affair with his producer. The news turned into a massive, immediate scandal, and Red snapped. He punched a hotel wall so hard he broke his hand, forcing him to miss 2 episodes. The ensuing divorce and custody battle for their daughter, Valentina, saw Red utterly crushed. In a desperate, shocking moment, he showed up to the court proceedings in full clown makeup, trying to remind the world, the court, and perhaps himself, that he was still a father who existed. It was written off by the press as a publicity stunt, but it was the only way the clown knew how to speak through the noise. Devastated by the betrayals and losses, the internal pressure became too much. By 1961, grief had completely swallowed him whole, leading to a near-fatal attempt to off himself with sleeping pills. Doctors brought him back, but the pain would cling to him for decades to come. The silent comeback and the final confession. Despite his enormous personal turmoil, he still broke rating records, pulling in 50 million viewers some nights. But then, in 1969, the unthinkable happened. CBS canceled his highly rated show to chase a younger, edgier audience. Then the IRS came calling, demanding $1.2 million in back taxes. At the age of 60, he was forced back onto the road, grinding out live shows in casinos just to pay off the massive debt. With his voice failing from years of smoking, he turned to painting as his medicine, eventually creating more than 50,000 canvases of his famous characters, most often Freddie the Freeloader. But his final, most haunting act was yet to come. In October 2024, Tubi streamed the uncensored edition of his final specials. It was a 45-minute extended cut of Freddie the Freeloader's Christmas dinner. In this footage, Red completely broke their character. He cried on camera, speaking of the never-ending aching hole left by his son, Richard Jr., and the pain of a father he never knew. It was the moment the clown mask was finally and irrevocably removed, revealing the shattered man underneath, a man who, despite a career built on laughter, admitted he never truly healed. The legacy of heartbreak. Red Skelton built an empire on the belief that a well-timed laugh could soften anything. But the final joke he shared was the deeply personal truth that some wounds simply cannot be healed, only hidden behind a painted smile. The network called his final confession too emotional. Yet it's the raw honesty of that moment that drew millions of modern viewers, proving that the real man behind the makeup was the performance we needed to see all along. Did Red Skelton's raw final confession change how you see him? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Eye on Fame for more deep dives into the stars with the biggest secrets.